Multiple Baltimore Ravens rookies had strong and intense messages for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens fan base. We talk about what they had to say, the Justin Tucker situation getting interesting with the selection of Tyler Loop, draft analysis, Diontae Johnson is off the board in free agency, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you so much for being here today on this Tuesday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens show. So Monday through Friday, we have regularly scheduled programming. Then sometimes on the weekends, we'll have bonus episodes. We'll go live after every Ravens game and every piece of Ravens big news. And shout out to the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and if you're in the middle, shout out to you as well. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. At Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. We have Kadri Isael, former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion, back in the house with us today. And Q, I'm going to give you another round of applause here. We have made it past the speculation. You are officially free. We now know we're done with it. We don't know who's going to be on the team. Maybe this guy will be the first round pick. Maybe it'll be that guy. We have 11 names that we can pinpoint. These guys are all Ravens. We don't have to speculate anymore on it.
Oh my gosh, I am sitting here jumping up and down because you can actually tangibly take a name, chew into it, chop it up, and then spit it out. Again, speculation, off season, not my gig. In season, see what they can do, how they play, how they perform. That's what we're talking about. So bigger picture wise, we're getting closer to that where now I can see a guy like, that's what he looks like. And that's what we're talking about. So I'm glad the draft, that phase of this offseason is over. I guess the scheduling coming out May 14th for the NFL, that's next on the docket. So be it. We'll speculate when that speculation happens.
I'm going to give you some credit here, Q. You are good at the offseason thing. You are good at it. You weather the storm. And I know that once we get to in-season, it's going to be a whole nother level from what you're able to do here because you're good at the offseason stuff. But we know you know a thing or two about playing football, Q. So that obviously is one of the things we love having you on here for every single week. And it's bittersweet, the draft process being over. You go through all the mock drafts, all the speculation, and all of a sudden, like, boom, there's nothing there anymore. We now know in this full Ravens draft class, Q. I mean, it was a very solid one, in my opinion. Obviously, headlined by Malaki Starks, the safety at number 27. How would you feel Baltimore did as a whole?
I just thought, especially when it came to the way the board fell to them, they talk about their board, and that just is their evaluation of players. They rank them all, and they go through their due diligence, and Malaki Starks was on the board. And so when the draft comes around, obviously you got 31 other teams, and so those teams have the similar players on their board. So it's about who can get who first. Or what is the run of a certain position. I think for the way this draft worked out, not a lot of quarterbacks, didn't really need that many quarterbacks. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders, that is a crazy story unto itself. This is a 5th-round pick. But, Cam Ward, outside of him, you just saw a first round that just was like, ho-hum. And so when the Ravens came up to pick, wow, Malaki Starks. Malaki, I think, fits what the Ravens do. I think he is phenomenal. I love how Zach Orr is excited because of when he had his pre-draft interview at the Combines. He really just thought it was awesome and how he was able to talk ball with him. It's one thing for a scout to really heap praise on a guy. It's quite a different when you look at the tape and you see what he could do, and then you talk to him and the tape and his football IQ match up. That's where I'm excited for Zach Orr, their defensive coordinator, Chuck Pagano, their now secondary coach, veteran of the business, former Ravens D coordinator himself, former head coach for Indianapolis Colts. So he's going to have a wealth of understanding and knowledge. And I think it's going to just really be synergistic. And again, what did you and I talk about before the draft? Steve Bisciotti was like, look, I ain't trying to win in the future. I'm trying to win now. I don't care. That was the first time I was like, wow, for him to say he doesn't care, this is a guy who loves the draft and get all draft geeky about it. He's like, I don't really care to be all draft geeky. I want some players. All right. So with that, you got a quarterback who is a now ready, hey, let's go ahead and get this thing done type player, Lamar Jackson. You need some now ready players. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think they answered that question.
Yeah, they certainly did. And their first two picks with Malaki Starks and then Mike Green at number 59, who no one thought was going to be there despite the off-field concerns or allegations that have followed him, falls to 59 Q, and he had a message. A lot of the Ravens rookies didn't. We'll get into what the messages were, but we'll start off with Mike Green and go in order. Mike Green's first message after he was drafted to the Ravens flock, he goes, #Ravens flock, watch what I do for y'all. So I think definitely a chip on Mike Green's shoulder here. Again, teams had him off their board due to all the off-field stuff that was reported. Some teams even had him off their board because they thought that reportedly him putting himself in that situation multiple times wasn't good. And so they said, okay, we don't want to deal with this. Baltimore made it clear, Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh, that with the off-field stuff, it was an exhaustive process. They felt comfortable with what they looked into. On the field, Q, there is no doubt Mike Green is a three-down player, an instant impact player, and someone that can give you, I think, 10 sacks plus his rookie season if everything goes right. He can stop the run effectively, pass rush plan, devastating spin moves, high motor, high energy guy, speed to power. And if he adds more strength, he's going to be even better at the next level. He has everything that you want. And for a guy that was projected to be a top 10, top 15, top 20 pick, and even for Malaki Starks was projected to go in that top 15 to top 20 range. Mike Green, a motivated Mike Green, that is a scary thing for, I think, not only the AFC North, but for the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, here's the thing. He actually was ranked higher than Malaki Starks in some people's draft boards. And for Mike Green to fall into the second round to 59, that is just incredible. I know, even from my own experience of, playing, I was supposed to be a first round guy. I was, Green Bay to Chargers to Chicago, and the 52nd pick, I go to the Minnesota Vikings. And so it was just one of those things where, for I think Mike Green, just his ability to have some statistics, number one, 17 sacks and 17 sacks. When you talk about the whole flow of tackles for loss, that means you're getting after it once, especially in college, that tackle for loss. Like you're talking about, getting to the quarterback, but it might be a read option or like an RPO or some sort of quick game. And then to be able to be that disruptive in the backfield says an awful lot, and more than held his own against teams like Ohio State. So I think for him, it's yes, that chip on his shoulder, but it's about also catching up to speed with the language of the NFL game, because once he does get caught up to speed, it's like, all right, Chuck Smith, what tools do you think I need to help me figure out the style of play for this offensive tackle? Once he gets that, bruh, it's going to be fantastic. I think this guy is a marvelous player. I know the off-field concerns. If the Ravens felt they did their due diligence, then okay, they did their due diligence. Let's see what that all looks like. Let's see, if he, is that high character guy. And okay, now is your time. Now is your time to say, I am that high character guy. Everything's going to be all right.
And we'll see. Obviously, the Ravens will continue to probably answer questions about that. But regardless, on the field, there's no doubt that Mike Green was a steal. I think the biggest steal, honestly, Q, in the last couple drafts, when you talk about where he was supposed to be taken versus where he was actually taken. Learning from Chuck Smith, learning from Kyle Van Noy as well in that room, I think is going to be awesome for Mike Green. Again, just mentorship, leadership. And for a guy like Mike Green, who is already so instant impact ready, like you said, Q, like that is what they need, that Nate Wiggins impact, that Roger Rosengarten impact. I think with their first 2 picks here, Malaki Starks and Mike Green, you're going to get that. At least best case scenario is. And I think that Baltimore, 2 positions of need that they absolutely needed a guy at, and I think alleviated a lot of concerns for a lot of people when it comes to the way this defense looks. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll continue talking about the messages that the rookies have sent to the Ravens fan base and to Lamar Jackson, including Emry Jones getting intense about Lamar. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account, wonder where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan out long-term goals. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Again, use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with Kadri Isael and Q. Draft officially in the books. 11 draft picks coming to Baltimore. One of those is third-round rookie Emry Jones out of LSU, someone that can be a swing guy for them. He can factor into the guard competition if they want to, was a highly touted recruit, and has been in a lot of big games over the course of his career. And he is fired up to block for Lamar Jackson. The Ravens do a great job. The Ravens productions, they release a lot of these draft calls, a lot of these draft videos, and, they're very heartwarming. Guys, really getting emotional and celebrating with their loved ones, with their families. And the Ravens released Emry Jones's call. And Eric DeCosta asks Emry Jones, how would you feel coming out to Baltimore and blocking for Lamar Jackson? And Emry Jones said, that'd be an honor. I'd love that. I'll put it all on the line for him. And to take that a step further, he then had an interview with WAFB 9, which is a local station in Louisiana, I believe. And Emry Jones was, again, asked what the Ravens are getting in him, and he said, I'm ready to go bleed for them. So this is a guy that's intense. He is excited, and I think this is kind of the profile cue that the Ravens have been looking for, the intensity, the high motor guys, the energetic guys, and again, guys that'll lay it all out on the line for not only the team, but of course, for their quarterback in Lamar Jackson.
Here's the thing. When you look at this draft, I thought it was really important that they did get some depth at offensive line. I thought a guy like Emry Jones, who played some significant snaps against guys who defensively, they're on other teams in the league, he held more than his own. I think now Warhop, he has the challenge. We're just going to go down all the coaches and all their challenges, but he's now going to have the challenge to get him up to speed. And I love this pick. I think it's a really smart pick for depth purposes, but then at the same time, I think he legit has an opportunity to compete. That guard position is not solidified whatsoever. So I think for him, if he can come in, have a good, strong camp, it'll be a challenge. There's a whole new language that you got to learn. But if he can learn it, I think he'll be a great addition to the offensive line.
Jones, for me, was on my short list of guys that I was totally comfortable with them taking at 91, along with a couple other offensive linemen. Would have been really nice if they were to trade up for a guy like Wyatt Milum out of West Virginia, who I know doesn't fit a ton of what the Ravens like in terms of his profile, but solid guy, can start immediately on any team, and Jacksonville got him 2 picks before, so we'll get into a little bit of that in the final part of the show. But Q, you have other guys sending messages here, and I think a really exciting one for people was Anias Peebles, who was a defensive lineman out of Virginia Tech. He gets drafted to Baltimore at number 210 in the 6th round. He was waiting for a long time to hear his name called. I think he fell due to some of the size concerns, and he's not going to give you the world in terms of being a run stuffer, but he is one of the best interior defensive pass rushers in this class, multiple 90 grades on PFF. He's someone that has a pass rushing plan as well, and he gets taken in the 6th round, and he sends very clear messages and intense messages about what he is going to bring here to the NFL. First of all, he says, go Flock, right? So he's excited to be in Baltimore. Then he says, y'all messed up letting me in the door at the NFL. Now I'm going to make it my home. So it's the intensity. And the reason I want to highlight these messages is because, some guys are like, yay, like I got drafted. It's always an exciting moment. But for the guys who have that chip on their shoulder, it's motivation. And I think it's more likely that they give 110%, whereas some people are just like, okay, I'm here. I made it. Like, that's it. And that is a mindset for some people. For others, like Anias Peebles here, I think that mindset is, hey, I was getting overlooked. I was getting passed on. I was supposed to go earlier. The Ravens do need some interior pass rush presence, and now I think a motivated Peebles can give you that.
I hope so. And a motivated guy is a focused guy. A motivated guy is going to be a locked in on what he needs to do guy. A motivated guy is a guy that is going to be a guy that is going to be asking lots of questions, also observing and seeing what other guys do. You got the Broderick Washingtons of the world that you're going to have to kind of contend with as far as personality wise. But I think, yeah, Anias, keep the edge, keep the chip on the shoulder. I know the Ravens in general, Eric DeCosta talked about not really having that big guy. But if you can go ahead and be able to not necessarily be big for big's sake, but be disruptive, now we're talking. Now we're getting in Joe Burrow's face. Now whoever Pittsburgh wants to claim as their quarterback, we're getting in his face. Now if it's Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Kenny Pickett, whomever they're going to call, we got the Browns number as well. That's what this pick is about. It's about putting pressure up the middle. Travis Jones now has another teammate that he can say, all right, bet. Him, Broderick Washington. We'll see what, the future holds as far as Brent Urban and later on down the summer. He doesn't need to necessarily worry about right now and how things figure out. But bottom line is I like this pick.
Yeah, I like it too. And I like that these guys are motivated. It feels like every pick in the Ravens draft class is motivated. And a lot of guys who get drafted are. And I'm excited to see Baltimore's rookies are excited for their opportunity, including Leonte Wester out of Colorado, who posted a Photoshop picture of him and Lamar, he in a Ravens jersey with the number 1. So I don't know if Lamar's going to have that because we know that's reserved for him after the Ravens hopefully won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But he put a posted that on his Instagram story and said, LJ, we on the way with the eagle and a heart. So he's super excited to be in Baltimore, play with Lamar. And Q, he's a smaller receiver. He's about 5'11", right around the 160s. We've talked about Baltimore needing a bigger bodied player, but we also outlined the fact that they could either go that route or a smaller, shiftier returner type player. And that to me is what Leonte Wester is. I think that is why they made this pick. He is obviously good as a receiver. He put up awesome numbers at Florida Atlantic before transferring to Colorado for a season last year. But as a returner, his year in Florida Atlantic during the 2023 year, that was his last year before transferring, 14 returns, 278 yards and a score. That's 19.9 yards per punt return. Then 9 returns for 108 yards and a score last year at Colorado, which is 12 yards per return. I think he can play for you out of the slot a little bit and be that shifty player, but we know the Deontay Hardy thing didn't work last season. We know Baltimore's been looking for a returner since Jacoby Jones, and obviously rest in peace to Jacoby. It's been tough since Jacoby left Baltimore to have a consistent option there. I feel like Baltimore wanted to swing on Leonte Wester and see if he could be their next returner.
I hope so, and I hope he gets every fair shake at doing that because ultimately, I really had fun watching Colorado play, and I thought he was significant in making plays. The Todd Monken system, if you can capture a hold of some of the acronyms and really just recognize like the subtleties of the Lamar Jackson way of doing things. Just because you got to get to 15, if you're wide open at 12, oh, you better look. That's where I think for Leonte Wester, that's where he's going to have to get caught up to speed. Special teams wise, bro, I'm making a team. If I kick off return, punt return, whatever, man, I'm making a team because you're right. You don't really have that true guy. So if you're showing the short-handedness, now obviously, you know John Harbaugh is a little leery of young guys back there on punt return in critical situations. So I guess that's where maybe a Tylan Wallace still might be back in reserve. But even Thailand, kind of had some shaky moments too. But bottom line is good for Wester that he's going to have every chance to make this ball club. And the fact that he's a returner is a big bonus for him.
Yep, I think that he, unless barring some other signing, I think he will be Baltimore's sixth wide receiver, and I'm really glad he's getting an opportunity because I think he fits the returner skill set, and you want to put a guy in the slot who has that shifty speed to him, and you need a guy to produce for you. Maybe he can't get some opportunities this year. We will see how that goes. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll continue diving into Baltimore's draft class, talk about the Justin Tucker situation, get into more draft analysis, as well as talking about Deontay Johnson being off the board in free agency. So be sure to stay tuned. We got plenty coming away on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. I'm a Denver Nuggets guy. The Nuggets tied the series up against the Clippers at 2 on Saturday, and it was a thriller. It goes back to Denver for Game 5, and right now the Clippers actually are 2-point road favorites against the Nuggets. So if you like the Nuggets at home at the underdog angle, you can be sure to go over on FanDuel and pick your side there. Or if you like the Clippers on the road, you can pick your side there as well. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Isael still rounding out this edition of Locked On Ravens with you here on this Tuesday. Q, the Ravens took a kicker. You and I talked about this. We kind of said to people, hey, this is probably going to be a thing that happens at some point in this draft with everything going on with Justin Tucker, his year on the field, and the allegations off of it. Tyler Loop is the pick, Arizona in the 6th round. Now, he has an NFL-ready leg. Like, he has a leg. He has a career long of 62. He hit that against Houston last season, 6 for 9 on 50-plus yard field goals last year. I know there's not an element of NFL pressure because we know Justin Tucker is one of the coolest, calmest guys, at least he has been for the majority of his career when it comes to that pressure moment. We don't know what the future holds with Tucker in terms of the NFL's investigation, the Ravens' ultimate decision with him. The situation does get interesting, though, because we do know, Q, that the Ravens, especially in the Eric DeCosta era, are not afraid to cut draft picks. And so I think that everybody is just assuming that they took Tyler Loop and that's it. Where in reality, that is certainly an outcome. But we just don't know for the Ravens and everything the NFL is looking at and investigating whether their decision will be to cut him or will be to keep him on the team. I still think it's one of these two guys that makes the roster. If the Ravens do cut Tyler Loop and they decide to keep Justin Tucker, which is still a possible outcome, who knows? Maybe they try to sneak him on the practice squad. But clearly they had a type here. When evaluating kickers, we know that Randy Brown is one of the best in the business. So I think everybody trusts his process. But this is a move that a lot of people anticipated happening, especially because John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta made it clear they were looking at kickers throughout this process.
Absolutely. And I think for Justin Tucker, it was interesting because John said he talked to him when he was in the building, and obviously he was reading all the reports of different things, and he's on the team. He's, a valuable member of the team until otherwise noted. I think that this situation kind of sucks for Justin because, yeah, it's partly his own doing and partly just a weird kind of breakdown scenario of what really happened. And obviously the Ravens, they got to wait for the NFL to do its due diligence and, make a decision whenever that decision is. I think for Tyler, it's come in, keep your nose down, say nothing, but be confident is all get out in your capabilities to make kicks. I would be curious to see how they handle it. Yeah, training camp, you can sort of pseudo put pressure on the kicker in training camp and all those things. But preseason games and the process of going through snap, hold, kick, how you look at the execution of all that, that to me is going to be the telltale sign, not practices. I know our fellow colleagues are going to be looking at it, charting it and all that, but I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter till literally a preseason game, whether or not he has the I can make the kick. Then it's okay, whatever happens with the scenario, but let's just say for all purposes that he makes the team. Now it's okay, you're sitting there in Arrowhead, how you gonna make this happen? You're sitting there in Pittsburgh, you're sitting there in Cleveland. Cleveland's you're off Lake Erie, and it's kind of weird how that's going to look to you. Those are the things that you got to kind of figure in and factor in. And this trial by fire, that's the bottom line. So I like his chances. Randy Brown is going to feel very confident in his decision of evaluating kickers. Clearly, they all said he went around the country looking at different guys, and so be it. Here we go. Let's see what Tyler got.
Yep, we're gonna see. We are gonna see. So again, there are multiple outcomes in this situation still. Could be the Ravens decide to just move on from Justin Tucker after the investigation. Again, a post June 1 cut would save Baltimore around $4 to $5 million. If they outright released him, they would actually lose money. They would have to designate him as a post June 1 cut to save that money. So whether they want to move on because they trust Tyler Loop or because the investigation turned up stuff, whatever it is, we don't know what outcome it's going to be. But now they have the option of Tyler Loop and him on the roster to figure that out and see what it is. Let's get back into draft coverage in just a minute, Q. I want to talk about Diontae Johnson for a second because this does have bearing on the Ravens depending on the money value. Diontae Johnson is off the board. He signs a deal with Cleveland. I didn't know if he was going to get one after what happened last season. But the reason this actually still has importance for Baltimore, because again, at the time of this recording, there's no money value on the deal. I don't know what it is. But if he signed a deal for more than a threshold, the Ravens claimed him off waivers after he was cut by Houston, after he was cut by Baltimore, because of the fact that if he were to sign a deal that qualified for a comp pick, the Ravens would be entitled to that because they traded for him and they brought him back. It was this whole loophole type thing from Eric DeCosta. Now that he's signed a deal, it is very possible that maybe he signed a deal for more than that threshold, which I believe is around $2 or $3-ish million for one season. Ravens already are scheduled for 4 comp picks. At least I believe. Maybe it's 3 because DeAndre Hopkins cancels out one of them. But it would be unbelievable, unreal if Eric DeCosta pulled this thing off in Cleveland. Third AFC North team in a year for Deontay Johnson, 5th team in a year for Deontay Johnson. I guess all I'll say here is good luck to the Browns.
That dude is an enigma, and I have no idea, how guys just like him a lot, and yet he's on the field and doesn't really produce, but he does, but he doesn't, and yet he's not really all there. If any of that makes sense. Yet here comes Cleveland. They feel that he's got some level of talent. Okay. I think that's something that is intriguing to me. I'll gladly, keep my eyes and ears open to see what transpires with him. But shoot, if the Ravens can get some comp picks or whatever for him, then more power to you. But yeah, you thought you was getting a guy that would help benefit your team and your offense, and You just go on social media on Kevin Oestreicher's Twitter account, and you'll see that, oh, yeah, there's a guy getting trolled because he did not do well when his opportunity and his name was called at the wide receiver position. Whether he was tripping in the middle of the field, when he was having an opportunity to get balls from Lamar, or if he was running down the sideline and kind of half-heartedly one-handed trying to catch it. Bottom line, Diontae Johnson was a bust here in Baltimore. Obviously, kind of weird scenario in Houston, not really wanting to kind of go in the game. And all right, he fits well in Cleveland then.
The fact that he handled himself the way he did, I think, is what rubbed the people the wrong way. But exactly, it's like during that Texans game, after the game, yeah, everybody was having fun with him. Yeah, Lamar, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Likely, I think, was there. So again, trades don't work out sometimes, but it's just, yeah, to me, it's the way he handled himself. But let's get back into the draft here because, again, there were some things that Baltimore did that I liked. Again, like I felt like the Teddy Buchanan pick at 129 was solid for them. I get people don't like taking a linebacker that early because of positional value when you have Roquan Smith. I think it was fine. There were a couple things, though. Again, they double dip at corner. I think that was solid. Ozzie says he can never have enough corners. 3 offensive linemen feels like a lot to me because it means that I think one of them is not going to make the roster in terms of maybe Garrett Dellinger or even Nick Samek, who was their 7th-round pick last season. I think Carson Wentz is really intriguing, in my opinion. And then Bilal Kone and Robert Longerbeam both have really intriguing skill sets. But, Q, I didn't understand their trade back from 136 to 141. It was a deal where they moved back 5 spots in a more valuable round to move up 5 spots in a less valuable round. And they also left multiple defensive linemen on the board who were supposed to be 3rd-round picks. And maybe they got too cute with it. You know, we saw the same thing last season when they could have traded up for a guard and they didn't. That happened again this year. So again, I thought that overall this draft was really, really, really good for the Ravens. But I know people say perfect draft for all these teams. There are always 1 or 2 instances where something goes the other way, but that doesn't take away from how good the class actually is.
Absolutely. I think Eric DeCosta described it as they didn't think the value was there, so they backed up. Then they thought the value was there based upon who was on the board, so they moved up. And so it's subjective, but we don't know their criteria fully. So we criticize it from the outside, but they're the analytics people that he feels, you know, it's well, it looks this way or looks that way, and this is why, and the whole nine. And okay, if you feel that that's going to help your ball club, then so be it.
Yeah,
That's how I'm looking at it. I'm like, it's so weird, but so be it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's fair. Where we don't know their process and we can evaluate from the outside, but you know, maybe they didn't want one of those D tackles and they thought that Peebles was going to fall. Peebles kind of saved him. I would have been a lot harsher if they didn't get Peebles because he was like the last guy. Now, after every pick on day 3, I was like, come on, please, Peebles. And then finally they get him. But again, I think a really solid draft class for Baltimore. I think it just is what it is here, Q, where Malaki Starks and Mike Greenbowl define this class. I mean, you'll hope to get other contributions from others, but at the end of the day, your top 2 picks will probably be the ones that make or break your class. You might have 1 or 2 that hit, maybe like a Peebles, but you have the potential to get some star power at the top of your draft here. So I appreciate you, Q. As always, thank you for popping on with me. Tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, as missile training, I know, is still in full swing for you.
Yeah, so the spring and summer months are vastly coming up, and obviously now that the draft is in the rearview mirror, it is missiletraining.com. So you can prepare, whether it be soccer tryouts, whether it be football tryouts. Heck, if you're trying to hone in on your skills from an explosiveness of basketball, softball, baseball, doesn't matter. Missiletraining.com is where you could find me. Human movement and sports performance. Human movement doesn't matter the age, 6 years old all the way up to 85. Worked with a ton of clients who have done well and amazing when it comes to their movement brilliance. Missiletraining.com is where you can interact. Hopefully you had a chance to see me on WJZ on our draft day special. But throughout the summer, you'll be seeing me on WJZ throughout our different purple shows that we have. And of course, every single week, we break it all down. Locked on Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and I, right here, chilling, hanging out with you, giving you what you need, all the Raven content.
Be sure you go support Q over at missiletraining.com. And of course, you can catch him here on Locked On Ravens every single week. Links will be in the description down below. Q, I appreciate you again. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened today to Locked On Ravens. On the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form. 5 days a week, daily Ravens coverage. Same show, both audio and video. Coming up tomorrow, back here, more Ravens coverage, more Ravens draft breakdown. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.